Hey, welcome back to the stash. I've always had such a soft spot for the Silver Age Spider-Man comics. Yes, some can be clunky, melodramatic, and sometimes just flat out absurd, but there's something so captivating about them. These were stories that didn't need to be perfect, they just needed heart. And somehow between Steve Ditko's frantic panels and Stan Lee's bombastic narration, they found it. These early issues, they didn't just define a character, they invented a whole new voice. A voice for every kid who felt like the world was too loud, too fast, too unfair, but who still believed they could make a difference. And in just 5 issues, Spider-Man had already gone from fighting crooks, wrestlers, and some of his now iconic rogues gallery to facing one of Marvel's deadliest villains. This comic is a glimpse into how chaotic, ambitious, and wildly unpredictable early Marvel could be. So let's go back. Way back to a time when Spider-Man was still figuring out what it meant to be a hero, and when Doctor Doom came knocking. This is The Amazing Spider-Man, Issue 5. New York. When is it ever not busy? The streets are always packed, the people are always lost within their own lives, but on this fateful day, one TV program manages to capture millions of eyes across the city. It's titled Spider-Man, A Force for Good or Evil, by none other than J. Jonah Jameson. JJJ rambles on and on about the Wallcrawler in ways only he can, and naturally his antics cause some commotion among the viewers. A prime example being a certain Peter Parker and his classmates. Each throw in their opinion, with Flash making it clear he actually looks up to the webhead. Peter stands and listens, contemplating his next words, resulted in him giving Jameson the benefit of the doubt to avoid suspicion of his being Spider-Man. Immediately though, he's knocked back by Flash, with insults headed directly his way, until he promptly tells Parker to get out and leave. But in another part of town, another listener hears Jameson's program. A strange and sinister listener. The arch-nemesis of the legendary Fantastic Four, the great Doctor Doom. Jonah's ranting blares in the background as his mind races with possibilities involving the Wallcrawler. The biggest being to use him as his greatest advantage. For no one truly knows Spider-Man's motives, and so to Doom, he believes the pair would make an unstoppable duo against the Fantastic Four. Then, without wasting a second more, Doom begins to put his plan into motion. He's managed to create a device that's able to communicate with Spider-Man using his own wavelength, allowing Doom to send forth a signal for the Wallcrawler. Meanwhile, at home, Peter Parker practices his agility with his web in the privacy of his own room, until the call-out from Doctor Doom begins to ring within his mind. Immediately, he stops his practice. His face can't even believe someone managed to figure out his spider sense. And so, as Peter Parker puts on the rest of his costume, enter the Amazing Spider-Man. Within mere moments, he reaches his destination, and he's left completely shocked to see the one calling him is the fearsome Doctor Doom. But no time is better than the present, so the Wallcrawler heads in to make a dramatic entrance. Up above on the ceiling, Spider-Man questions Doom's motives. Dr. Doom stands firm, his fist clenched and posed in the air as he depicts the power he offers Spider-Man here today. He continues, trying to manipulate the webhead with every carefully chosen word, but Spider-Man, staying true to himself, loudly declines the offer. Doom then warns him, if he declines this, then the two will forever be deadly foes. But his words have no effect on the Wallcrawler. Spider-Man in an instant webs up Dr. Doom. However, one such as Doom is near impossible to outthink. The person he just webbed up is no person at all, but rather one of his trusty Doom bots. Then suddenly, the trapdoor underneath Spidey slams against the hidden wall. Spider-Man, using his uncanny spider agility, however, manages to maneuver out of the way of his demise and straight into the sights of his enemy. Doom with ease shoves him back, creating some distance between the two. Distance he just so needed to use his miniature finger gun. He begins blasting away at the Wallcrawler. Each shot is unrelenting, each dodge is life-saving. Then Spider-Man heads straight for the window and plunges deep within the ocean as his escape, leaving Doom with nothing left but to begin his backup plan. Outside, Spider-Man is preparing to go back in there to finish the fight, but by the time he reaches the roof, an explosion roars, causing the abandoned building to be completely destroyed. Spider-Man, trying to make the most out of the situation, decides to take some pictures of the scene for J. Jonah Jameson. But as he swings off, it seems he just can't catch a break, for the watchful eyes of the public have deemed Spider-Man the culprit for the explosion. The next day at the Daily Bugle, Jameson reluctantly buys Parker's photos because what he's really after is pictures of Spider-Man's involvement. He's completely desperate to somehow pin this whole thing on him. Peter, however, talks back to Jameson, telling him how the people of the city are starting to think his view on the Wallcrawler is far too skewed, with JJJ's real motives beginning to be questioned. Betty even chimes in, defending Peter and piling more pressure on their boss. Jameson, though, is having none of it, making the whole effort futile. He makes it very clear that his one-man war against the Spider-Man is here to stay. Sometime later in another part of town, Peter's classmates are preparing for their greatest gag yet. Flash Thompson is dressed in a near-perfect replica of Spider-Man's suit, and once he finds Parker, he'll teach him not to knock his hero. Meanwhile, though, Dr. Doom has finally constructed a new device that's set to lead him directly to his newfound enemy, the Amazing Spider-Man. And without further ado, he heads out to find the Wallcrawler. Back with Flash and the gang, it's time for their prank to come to life. Peter is found innocently walking down the street, lost in his own thoughts as Flash puts on his mask, ready to give Peter the fright of his life. But unbeknown to Flash, fate has a scare far worse in store for him. Dr. Doom in his helicopter, unaware that the signal is actually following Peter, believes to have found his prey. And so, before Flash can get the jump on Parker, Doom within an instant renders him helpless before his might. As the day goes on, Peter has finally made it back home to find his Aunt May watching one of her favorite TV shows, until randomly without warning, the screen goes to static. For some strange force is affecting all transmissions, and that's when the face that strikes fear into anyone who dares make eye contact appears, the face of Dr. Doom. Using this drastic measure, Doom sends forth his message to the Fantastic Four. The camera pans to show a defenseless Spider-Man caught within his web, and so Doom swears that if the Fantastic Four don't surrender before him, then Spider-Man will forfeit his life. He declares he will wait exactly 1 hour for a response. And with that all said, the transmission shuts off, leaving the haunting, chilling threat of Doom lingering in the air. But then, Peter's deep thought is cut off by the sound of the phone ringing. He picks up. Liz's voice rings outwards, her tone filled with dread and worry, for Flash is missing. But Peter isn't exactly in a rush to do anything about it. He then hangs up, as temptations fly around his mind. What a break, he thinks. Flash, the man who's terrorized him for as long as Peter can remember, will soon meet his demise. But then, his sense of responsibility, the one created through years and years of love and care by his great, late Uncle Ben, begins to take control. He knows what he must do. He knows what his responsibility is. And so, after making the necessary excuses to his Aunt May, the Amazing Spider-Man is hot on the trail. His searching is relentless, his effort unwavering, and finally, his spider sense has picked up Doom's location. Inside the gloomy, abandoned factory, Doom stands and waits for the Fantastic Four to arrive. All the while, the Spider-Man he has held in captivity begs for his plea to be heard. Doom naturally doesn't believe his cries, and belittles the supposed Wallcrawler. Meanwhile, on the roof, Spider-Man is soon bound to make an entrance as he slithers down the air vent. And once within the confinement of Dr. Doom's battleground, the sensational Spider-Man shoots forth his piercing spider logo. Doom questions how this is even possible, and so Spidey tells him about the fake he has in captivity, yet it means very little at the moment, for their brawl is about to begin. Doom immediately on the offense shoots out a blast. Spider-Man dodges it with ease, but the attacks are continuous. Using his brilliant webbing, he not only blocks the blast, but also manages to halt them, before swiftly countering with an attack of his own. Doom retreats, but only by a little so he can reach an also important control panel. Suddenly from the ceiling, ice darts fall downwards to a hero, but luckily Spidey is well prepared. The fight, however, is far from over. Doom unleashes yet another contraption. Iron globes fly around the room. Their distance and range grows larger and larger with every lap they make. Spider-Man must think fast before his agility is no longer useful. He dives to the ground, all the while shooting out a web that jams up the entire machine, rendering it nothing more than useless metal. But before the webhead can get his breath back, flames begin to rise, rushing up from underneath the ground. Spider-Man sticks and flips onto the wall before swiftly leaping onto the ceiling and then jumping down to safety, avoiding the heat rays completely. But little does he know, that's exactly what Doom wanted. Spider-Man stands helpless as electricity begins to consume his entire body. Doom near the control panel enjoys the sight, increasing the current without mercy nor a slither of empathy. But then, fighting desperately to maintain consciousness, Spider-Man shoots out a web line, his last hope for survival, which carries with it the same electric current that is weakening the desperate crime fighter. And as the web strikes the startled Dr. Doom, the same charge of electricity runs through his body, magnified tenfold by his metal suit. He quickly shuts off the current. The two stand still for a moment, with Spider-Man believing to have finally taken the upper hand. But then, his spider sense blares as cold metallic hands reach from behind. It's the Doombot from before, holding him just where his foe needs him. When suddenly, another contraption begins to activate, shooting out large deadly bolts of energy. It's now or never for the webhead. He must think of a way to get out before it's too late. And so, using his incredible strength, Spider-Man launches the Doombot right at Dr. Doom. The counter buys him only a mere moment, but he plans to make the most of it. He picks up a satellite machine and throws it right at the sphere, but the energy bolts disintegrates the object before it even has a chance of doing any damage, leaving Spider-Man still searching for some way to shut it off. He leaps forth, dodging the menacing bolts as he tries to reach the control panel, but now he must face Dr. Doom up close and personal. He latches onto the wall crawler and begins to tirelessly push him back ever so slightly into the deadly machine's path. Then, Spider-Man, exerting every last bit of power contained in his body, executes one last maneuver. He manages to twist suddenly so that both he and Doom sprawl against the control panel, halting the fatal disintegrating bolts. But on the verge of exhaustion due to his monumental effort, Spider-Man cannot prevent his older, more experienced adversary from regaining his balance first and striking the initial blow. Doom's fury doesn't let up, not even for a second. He dazes the wall crawler and continues his cutting attacks. But somehow, using his spectacular spider sense, he evades every single assault, all until his luck seemingly runs out. Spidey slips thanks to the iron globes from the machine he disarmed moments ago, leaving himself more than vulnerable to a finishing blow by the hands of the merciless Dr. Doom. But at that fateful second, something outside a nearby window catches the eye of Doom. Spidey sits there, still dazed, as we witness something no soul has ever truly seen before. Dr. Doom pauses and panics. For outside, his greatest enemies, the Fantastic Four, are soon to make their entrance. Even Doom himself admits he's no match against the FF and Spider-Man. So, within a mere second, he makes his escape, leaving the death of Spider-Man for another fateful day. At that moment though, Spidey's vision finally returns, allowing him to quickly make sense of the situation. He'd love to stay and chat with the Fantastic Four, but he's completely forgotten about his poor old Aunt May. And so without wasting a moment more, the wall crawler rushes back home, leaving Flash to deal with the FF instead. Soon after, Peter eventually makes it back, relieved to see that Aunt May is entirely okay. And so, our story ends with Peter's typical Parker luck running rampant once more. For he was certain that Flash Thompson would have been made the most embarrassed kid at school after yesterday's events. However, as fate would have it, Flash is still living in the limelight, while Peter Parker remains an outcast.